I'll see you guys in the dark.
I've been a nurse now for 7 years. I absolutely love it. Back when I was in school, besides your clinicals, where did a rotation in every unit, you had a month-long unpaid internship if you passed your exams and were slated for graduation. The internships were given out by the head instructor, and it went alphabetically. My last name ends in T, so I was at the tail end of it. All the internships I wanted had been taken. The instructor told me, "Hey, we have a psych internship at major psychiatric facility. You're a big strapping guy. I'm sure you'll be perfect for the job." Great. Psych. I wasn't thrilled. I had no interest in a psych, but I needed the hours to graduate, and I figured I'd have stories to tell my buddies over beer. I had no idea what was going to happen. The hospital I interned at is quite well known, so I'm going into many specifications, but it has a psych ward that deals with many different psychiatric disorders. There's a few floors. They had a rehab as well as a clinic for eating disorders. The floor I was assigned to was the children's psychiatric ward, so children 18 and under with all kinds of issues. Since I was not licensed yet, I didn't distribute medicine or really do anything besides work as a glorified orderly. Some of the kids were awesome. They had severe autism or other issues, but were still great kids. Then there was Adam. He was diagnosed with RAD, as well as a bevy of psychological issues. He was 10, and had tried to hurt his 6-year-old sister, punched his mom so hard he knocked her unconscious, and ended the family's cat, among other things. He was not allowed general access, not allowed to do craft hour. He was allowed an hour of free time where I or another staff member brought him to a small atrium where he'd run in circles or kick a half-deflated soccer ball. Well, one day it's raining, and the atrium is a no-go, so I was told to let him in a small nurse's lounge. The charge nurse swore she removed any weapons she could have used, so I brought him in there, and while he sat in a corner and talked to himself, I sat in a chair and just waited. I got radioed from an elderly, so I take my eyes off Adam for a millisecond, and the next thing I know, a chair is violently launched at me. It hit me square in the face, and I go down to the floor. I was stunned, knocked out, and suddenly there's a 10-year-old 80-pound kid on top of me, hell-bent on hurting me. Luckily, he was easily distracted, and at the exact moment the charge nurse came into the lounge, probably to get coffee, I was able to flip him over and get him subdued. The charge nurse almost wets herself, then starts apologizing to me. I ended up with a broken nose and some bruises. The head nurse was slapped on the wrist, and my ass was kicked for the next 2 weeks. Surprisingly, besides Adam and a few others, that place made such an impact on me after I graduated and became certified. I ended up working there for 4 years. So I have many stories from my time there. Last I heard, Adam was at a long-term facility and with meds, and he is doing just fine now. I spent my New Year's Eve and Christmas in a hospital, so yay me! I'm 14 years old, and I was in a pretty bad accident. My dad was T-boned by a drunk driver, and a piece of metal almost completely impaled my leg. I really did escape death, though. This happened not even 3 hours ago, and I can't get back to sleep. Thank God I'm going today. There has been this nurse. She looks like a really normal and nice person. The things she has said over the past couple of days have just given me the creeps. My leg will sometimes start to leak blood, and she just needs to redress it. She would rub my leg randomly. She was not putting cream on or anything medical. She would just rub it. Nowhere near the wound, like always on the other side. I would ask her what she was doing, and the answer changed from testing the pain, to massage, to feeling for lumps. All while doing the exact same thing, every time. She did it for an uncomfortably long time. She would make this comments about how I had little chest hair, and how it would come in once I'm a man. She would make this comment like ladies love men with scars. I woke up 3 hours ago, and this nurse was standing at my foot of the bed, staring at me. I did not move at all. I do not think she knew I was awake, but I had my eyes half open, peeping out, looking at her. She was literally just standing there, looking at me. I turned over to suggest I was awake, and no joke, I saw her leave the room and walk into the hallway. What do you suggest I do? Do I tell a doctor, or one of the other nurses that are in the ward? I have some health issues that have required multiple hospitalizations throughout the years. This lovely incident happened when I was about 19. He was probably mid-30s. During these hospital visits, I was usually on a lot of pain meds and anxiety meds, and this tech took complete advantage of that. He would come in at regular intervals to make my vitals, etc., but soon started lingering just a bit too long. He started asking me personal questions about my life, where I went to school, my interests and hobbies, and then it moved to asking me where I lived. I think I was fine giving that last answer because of all the meds. It then got to the point where he was coming in my room late at night just to sit and talk with me. I was fine with my nurses doing this, and actually loved it from them, but I somehow knew something was off with him. One night, I really got the impression that he was hitting on me, but again, the meds made me think this was somehow okay. He then took the chance to ask for my phone number, which I very, very drugged up, very stupidly gave to him. I barely remember the interaction. That resulted in him texting me while I was still in the hospital, asking how I was doing. After I was discharged, he started texting me, a lot, without any responses from me. At this point, I wasn't on IV narcotics and saw it as very wrong. It got to the point that it was almost harassment. I ended up blocking his number, but then started seeing him around my neighborhood. Again, it was only a block from the hospital, but I know he had no reason to be walking down my street. After blocking and ignoring his presence for a while, I stopped seeing him altogether. I don't know why I didn't report any of this, and feel stupid for not doing so. Who knows how many other young female patients he did this to, or did even worse with. It's been years, and I don't remember his name or the unit I was on, and I don't have the text anymore. If I did, I would most certainly reach out to someone about the issue. Now being a nurse myself, I've realized how utterly inappropriate this is. Moral of the story, always have an advocate in your hospital room, and if you feel that something feels off, just say something. Creepy PCT, let's not meet again. Having been admitted to the ER overnight, I was transferred to the second floor the following day for extended observation and treatment. I was lucky enough to get a 2-person room to myself, overlooking the graveled roof of the cafeteria and gray stone walls of the adjacent ward. Directly across the hall was also a patient with a 2-person room to herself, for reasons which will have been made abundantly clear. From what I gathered, she had been in the ward since the previous day, when I was sleeping in the ER. How do I know this girl? The girl is loud. She was talking to her friend on her cell phone about how she was pissed drunk coming back from a guy's house, pissed in her car, and crashed. My introduction to her was actually a nurse telling her, and I quote, "Do you realize we're being cold with you? We're not giving you a lecture. You're old enough to know better." She might have whiplash or lower back problems because she's been put on morphine and was in a wheelchair. But that's not even the start. She was constantly screaming at other people, other patients. "Close your fucking jacket. I don't want to see your butt," when they passed in front of her door. Mind you, she refused to wear the jacket, kept her single change of clothes and beanie hat. Also, "Don't look. Also, just close your damn door. Hell." She even went into the other patients' rooms and scolded them to properly tie their jacket. The patients were all elderly, so I never heard anything from them, of course. She curses at the nurses for confiscating her smokes because she tried to light up in her room. "I'll freaking sue you." Yeah, sure you will. When she got the evening meal, she yelled into the hallway because she didn't like apple juice and wanted something completely different. She never rang the nurse bell. She just moans loudly when someone passes by to try and get their attention. all the freaking time. She talked to me once, the first night I was in the ward. After lights out, I got up, hunched over, holding onto the drip pole. I shuffled to my room's bathroom. As I was opening the door, with difficulty I might add, being bent over, holding myself for support, dragging wires and such, she just states, "I can see your butt." She should have to be sitting on the edge of her bed and peering outside her room purposely to even spot me between curtains. My mind went to two places. The first and strongest instinct. 65% of me wanted to respond, "Then just don't look at me." Although the other 35% won out, thinking, "No, she's just crazy. Don't make yourself a target." De-escalate. So I am calmly stated I'm going to the bathroom. This worked. I don't think she expected any response because she said the calmest thing I'd heard all week from her. "Oh?" Next morning, all aboard the crazy train. I woke up to her yelling across the ward, to the room diagonally across the hall from her, to an older woman clipping their nails. "What's that freaking noise? Stop making that freaking noise! Ah! Make it freaking stop!" She had also vomited in the bathroom in the morning and had asked a nurse for a doctor to look at. Well, the doctor wasn't there yet. A person in the other connected room had to go to the bathroom, so obviously they had flushed. Thus, Miss Bottle of Joy and Sunshine started yelling obscenities at her from her own room. "You stupid biatch! Why did you flush it?" etc., etc. That got her nowhere. So instead, she decided to climb onto a wheelchair and run after a patient whose butt she saw, screaming, "I will rip off their jacket! It's freaking disgusting!" No idea what happened with that, but she did come back soon after. I don't think anybody was assaulted, though. That night, she called her actual boyfriend and started questioning him very loudly about red dots on her crotch. She swears it's not from her because she was tested before being with him. Throw pressure on her boyfriend. He admitted to diddling a girl when he was at the girl's place. Miss Sunshine turned up her psychotic yelling to 11, trying to get him to admit to more, then locked herself in the bathroom. That did not help the sound volume at all. Later at dinner, she yelled at the nurses saying that she did not want her side of the bathroom door locked. It wakes her up when other patients go to the bathroom. I told them 6 times not to go to the bathroom, but they just don't listen to me. She was back in bed, pressing the nurse call button, moaning loudly, calling into the hallway. She wants morphine now. The nurse comes in. "You're not due for morphine for another 27 minutes. Little Miss Sunshine. Before it was 2 hours. Now it's every 4 hours? What's it going to be next time? Every 8 hours? Nurse, that's exactly right. More yelling. Then her dinner tray goes flying. "Nurse, no, no." Steps into the hallway. "Call a Node White. Intercom. Code White, 2nd floor. E ward, room 2200. Code White." 3 security guards come running in. Miss Sunshine is pinned down, under protests from her, almost like trying to throw a cat with each hand at the same time. She's strapped down, legs, arms, wrists, and neck. Resident doctor comes in, tells her she can wait, or have 2 Advil. She says, and I quote, "No, I don't want drugs that will mess with my mind." "Doctor, you're taking morphine. That messes with your mind a lot more than you think." She is then given a choice for Advil, orally, or a suppository. She answers, "Not in the mouth." So? Then she learns what a suppository really is. Remember how she is strapped down? Remember how she refuses to wear the jacket? Remember how she's still wearing her only change of clothing? The jeans are then ripped. Crying is had. In between sobs, all I hear is, "Ow, ow, ow, it burns, ow, it burns." All I can think of is stop clenching. She is left strapped in, door closed. Reports and paperwork are made out in the hall. She is being left to scream and tire herself out until the meds and morphine kicked in. Silence in the ward is soothing and creepy. Shortly after, when it rains, it pours. Coincidentally, her grandmother comes by to visit her. She somehow got a heads up. While still being strapped in, she's pleading, and pleading to be unstrapped so her grandmother doesn't see her like this. Nurses aren't having any of it, though. Once her grandmother left, she starts yelling again. She says she wants to pee right before she pissed herself. Nurses responded, "Okay, well, all we had to do was cooperate. You had many, many chances. Now you have to wait in your pee." Cue full exorcist mode for about an hour. They finally unstrapped her after 3 or 4 hours. Honestly, no sympathy. She really needed to be strapped in. Heck, she was one step away from assaulting other patients. They brought in a psych to listen to her. Kudos to the hospital, though. "They ripped my whole pants. I peed my only pants. My pants are now ruined." Well, guess now you have to wear the jacket. Funny out how that works. So, the next day, there's a doctor now, consulting her. They took away her smokes. They are now refusing to give them to her. When suddenly, the intercom goes off. They called another code white because she was yelling and spat at a senior doctor who was listening to her. The security guards strap her down again. Nurse told her the guards to use face shields because she's a spitter and has unknown VD. She started crying and breaking out. Finally, she broke down, it seemed. The crying was different. A distinctive note of powerless underneath it all. Unmistakable, though. But that was just an illusion, because she went forth psychotic as soon as she unstrapped her for the night. They closed all the doors in the ward, and the nurses and nurses' aide visited each patient and told them that the entire ward had been prescribed Ativan to help us sleep. Opt in, of course, but it's there if they wanted it. The next morning, her kid came in to visit, and I was discharged that afternoon. No idea what happened to her. I don't really care to find out. So the girl across the hall from me, let's not meet again. I pulled up Saturday morning to utter chaos. Turned out a patient got out of his room. Not just any patient, though. A patient for who the past week hadn't had received his meds for his paranoia schizophrenia because head nurse didn't believe he suffered from it and was being over-medicated. Not to mention the patient had his chart in extremely combative needs medication, and Nurse Ratchet decided she didn't need it to cut his costs. This guy had caught an unaware janitor and beat him pretty good with a mop bucket, and he's loose? Obviously the police were called, right? Nope. The board of directors told staff no one was to call the police except for him, and that was only a last resort. The poor janitor, who is now bloody and battered, is taken to the medical bay so Nurse Ratchet can fix him up. Meanwhile, I'm asked to join the search for the patient. So myself, 2 orderlies, and our security guard, who is pushing 70, starts looking. We, against my better judgment, break off into groups of 2, opening doors, calling the patient's name. We go into the first cafeteria in the dementia ward, the ward that housed the residents with memory loss, more severe physical issues, anyone like Agnes, who tended to wander off. Except the design was flawed as hell. Residents still got in and out, but in the cafeteria or the big rec rooms, the doors would look behind you, so someone would have to come to let you out if you got locked out. So we're in the cafeteria looking around, and I hear a huge bang from the kitchen, like someone pushing over something heavy. Myself and the orderly that was with me go running, and they're trying to rip the bars off the window, and escape is the patient. The orderly, just like an idiot, presses his radio, and the second the patient heard that sound, he's moving towards us, huge metal soup ladle, and a Phillips screwdriver in his hand. Thank God they kept the knives locked up. I'm a big guy, but this patient was easily 6'5" and 300 plus pounds. The orderly is radioing for help, and I'm throwing things at this guy who's got murder in his eyes. No lie, I've seen some screwed up things in the Marines, but this guy's dead fucking eyes will haunt me forever. Then he's on me, and I'm doing my best to keep him from gutting me with a screwdriver, when he just starts choking me with his bare hands, and I'm getting some good punches in, but he's feeling no pain at all. The orderly realizes, oh crap, I'm getting choked to death, and he jumps on his back, starts wailing on this guy. I blacked out, and when I woke up, I was being put on a stretcher. My trachea was so bruised I couldn't talk past a whisper for weeks. I came very close to dying. Thankfully, the orderly got a hold of a cast iron pan and whacked the patient unconscious. As you can imagine, both the director and the charge nurse were let go, and including a lawsuit brought against them, and the board of directors of the long-term care by myself, the janitor, the orderly, and the family of the patient. It also caused a huge shake-up in the facility, and I've heard since then things have run a whole lot better. As for me, I quit even though I was offered a raise. I hear the patient got back on his meds and was eventually released into care of his family. Regardless, let's not meet ever again. About 2 years after I finished college, I was diagnosed with cancer, an aggressive bone cancer called Ewing's sarcoma. I underwent 12-week-long doses of chemotherapy, a month of radiation, and a 13-hour surgery to remove a big amount of bone. Sadly, about 14 months after I completed my first occurrence, spots were found in my lungs, which meant another surgery. And because I was at a cancer research hospital, young, and the first set of chemo weakened my heart, I was put on very high dosages of a secondary chemo that didn't cause heart damage at experimentally high dosages. At high doses, the chemo diminishes my immune system for several years, and I did a number on my kidneys. So a few years after I completed that chemo, I got an incredibly bad infection that turned into sepsis. And after having spent over 1,000 nights in the hospital, I flipped out a little and developed what's known as ICU psychosis. The noises, IV pumps pumping, and certain medications plus a lot of stress can drive you a little nuts until you get moved to a different floor or just go home. So while I was in ICU, I was not myself. I am normally really nice, easy to get along with, and only ever complain if it's something really major, like I don't recognize these pills, or I'm bleeding through this dressing. This time I was yelling, crying, argumentative. I was getting on my own nerves, and I couldn't do anything about it. So after I was moved to a regular floor, I was back to being myself. But I was really stressed out, and my family requested that a chaplain stop in to check on my mood while my husband was at work. The first day went just fine. I was questioning why me a lot, and depressed, but my demeanor was normal. So the chaplain stops by a few times, and it's fine. On the third day, someone else was there. It's not uncommon that they have more than one chaplain, but this guy was either the worst chaplain in history, or he was an imposter. He was wearing a purple hoodie and jeans, and the same sport coat the other chaplain was wearing. Not like a uniform, like he took the guy's jacket. It had the usual chaplain's name tag on it. He introduced himself as the other chaplain's name, but because I'd only seen him a couple of days, I thought maybe I was just mixed up since I had been so confused and argumentative just a week ago. I thought maybe he's a seminary student because he looked 22 at the oldest. He sits down and starts asking me really hypothetical questions, like no one celebrates Easter and the Holocaust, and why do I think anyone really cares about other people? Whether I deserve my husband since I am so difficult. I had been to this hospital dozens of times, and this was the first and only time I was ever anything but polite. And the nurses all said, no apology necessary when I finally realized I'd been difficult, and that they knew I wasn't really myself. So I say, I don't get what you're getting at. Maybe you should just go. And I go to hit the nurse button because I'm a little freaked out by him. He grabs my arm before I can reach it and squeezes it really hard, and he says, people like you act like you're good people, but really you just pretend, and you're actually hateful, and you white credit card rich housewives show up here just for the drugs. I was shocked, especially since he wasn't supposed to know what medication I take, and it's not unusual to be on pain medication after a surgery, and I had just broken my tailbone a few weeks prior to this. I was about to scream when suddenly he let go, got up, and left. When the nurse came in after, I told her that the chaplain had just come by was really inappropriate with me. She said she would talk to the person in charge, and he said the chaplain that was supposed to be there had an emergency, and they didn't have anything and they didn't have anyone that fit my description of him. So I don't know if he was a random loony that grabbed a jacket off of a chair or what, but it was super unnerving to me. So fake hospital chaplain, let's not meet ever again.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.